back to another episode of On the Wagon Podcast, the sobriety podcast with a shot of comedy. Today we are going to get into a Bender weekend of mine, have some fun laughs, some good stories here from about 6-7 years ago. We're going to do a couple flashback to those stories and get a few laughs during this time. Currently in the state of Wisconsin where I am, we are on day 2 of quarantine or lockdown or the stay-at-home order. So for our listeners that are outside of Wisconsin, that just means non-essential businesses have to be closed. So businesses that can be open are grocery stores, pharmacies, gas stations. Restaurants can stay open if they have curbside or delivery, stuff like that. Pet stores, essential stuff. So we're really told to stay home unless you have to be out. That doesn't mean you can't go outside. You can still go outside and exercise and things like that. So we're definitely taking advantage of that here. Hopefully a little warmer temps. But there's a lot of businesses here that have to be closed, small businesses, and I really feel for them and the business owners because it's a tough time for them, especially bars. A lot of bars, in the state of Wisconsin don't serve food or don't have that access. A lot of them have frozen pizzas, popcorn, snacky things, but they have to fully close. I know there's a bar across the street here that's been closed for the last few days because, with this order and people, that's a huge deal for their employees and the revenue and it trickles all the way down to the beer and alcohol distributors. That business is a big business here in the Midwest. So I really feel for all those business owners, and hopefully, this passes and we can get through this as a state and as a country. So I wanted to throw that out there, but I just thought found it very, crazy. My sobriety date is November 1st, 2019. So we're coming up on 6 months here, and I love bars. I still love bars. I just can't drink in them anymore. But I like the social aspect. I like the camaraderie of watching games there. The bar owners, the people. I do. Those are all good things. But bars have been closed. It's like, how crazy is that? A person who lived in bars got sober before all this happened. It would have been a pretty big deal for people that were struggling with drinking a lot. But it really does trickle down to now even the AA meetings. AA cannot meet in person. So people are really struggling right now. Some people that have been in AA for a lot of years that need that meeting every day. And I know a lot of people out there are struggling. So, prayers out to everybody that's going through that right now, and try to get to, meetings online. A lot of Zoom conferences I know are trying to get to, and some people don't have access to that, or some people don't know how that works. But for the younger people that are in AA, I think that's take advantage of that. I also put something out on my Instagram about Sobercast. It's a great podcast. It's a speaker meeting every day that comes to your phone. I've listened to it every single day since I've been sober, and it's just been a blessing to hear stories, and you can hear what it was like and how it's different now. If you're not familiar with a speaker meeting, so I would definitely highly recommend listening to that if you're struggling right now or still going through recovery. It's good. It's a good thing that you can throw on while working from home. So those are those kind of things that are going on right now. It's just a crazy time, and I got to go day by day. But today, I have a new coffee on that was brewed thanks to a good friend of mine who gave us at the podcast release party. So I appreciate that, Alex, for that. So we're trying that today. But I was going through the list of episodes that I've kind of pre-wrote down, and I thought, well, there's some ones where a lot of more self-help, some people that are always expected to be the life of the party. I'm going to do an episode on that. Fighting urges. I know that's probably a tough time for a lot of people right now. The OWI story. I that's a really full story, and I want to make sure I'm on my game for that one because there's a lot of moving parts to that. Both good and really terrible things that happened during that time. So I want to make sure I'm ready for that one. So that'll be coming up in the next couple weeks. Chad Smith is going to rejoin the podcast. He's going to go a little deeper into his alcohol issues. So he's coming on in April. Still looking for people to come on the podcast. Like I said, it can be a fun, lighthearted podcast if you're fresh in recovery or if you've been in recovery for many, many years. We'd love to hear your story and hear some of your war stories and drinking times and how you're staying sober now. So keep that in mind for future episodes. Really starting to get a nice following on iTunes. We launched all our episodes at once on iTunes, so downloads are starting to come in. I do have some sponsorship opportunities I'm looking into that I really want to try to promote the podcast and promote other people's businesses, trying to connect, both a business and a podcast. So looking into cool apparel brands or a coffee brand or something that we can, everybody help each other where I could promote that on our social media. So, if you're listening to this, make sure you share this with others. If you see it on Instagram, share that Instagram. That it's word of mouth at this time. I'm not putting anything into paid advertising. I just want to get this out, and I think it's a great time right now with everybody being inside and working from home that they can listen to more podcasts, watch more video podcasts. So that's kind of where we're going here. But for today's episode, I'm going to title this it was a Bender weekend. So it was a golf outing and a night out on the town and then a Packer game all in the one weekend. So it was a crazy, crazy weekend. Little backstory on this. So I think this was about 6 or 7 years ago. Lived downtown with two really good friends, awesome people, still best friends to this day. Friday night comes around. I had this a big golf outing. It was always in the fall, fun time. A good fundraiser for a local school. Just a great time. So the golf outing was about 10 miles out of town. So it's in another small town right outside of Oshkosh. So I was prepping for that. So Friday night, I know one of my friends was going out, and I some reason stayed in. I said I got a big weekend ahead of me. I got golf outing and a Packer game on Sunday. So surprisingly, I didn't drink all 3 days, which is a miracle because I could not even imagine what shape I would have been in on Sunday or Monday come forward for that. So he goes out. I remember I rested up, watched some movies, did some laundry, hung out that night. The next morning, I'm getting my golf stuff on, tee time or, shotgun start, I think it was at like 11 or 12. So I was, probably 9:30, 10, we were probably going to go hit some range balls. Start talking to my buddy. He had a kind of a wild night and, nice day. I remember it was beautiful out, perfect fall weather. So we get out to the golf course. I don't drive, I get picked up, which was very smart on my part, I guess. So we get out there, start cracking beers, good time, 18 holes of golf. So the golf outing is always a scramble, which I love because I'm not a huge golfer. I like the camaraderie and playing on as a team. So when you're in a scramble, you got four of you, so you kind of take your best shots. So I'm terrible at drives, but I'm pretty good within 100 yards. My short game, putting, I'm okay at, so I always like that aspect of it. But the driving part, I'm just terrible. I'm all over the place. I shank a lot of balls. So I love this scramble aspect, your team camaraderie. So these golf outings, you pay as most of the money goes to the fundraiser, but then you pay for the golf. You get a dinner afterwards, which is usually like a kind of a barbecue, and then you always get two drink tickets. Well, those 2 drink tickets were gone immediately for each of us, I think, that were golfing. Good group of guys too, fun stuff. Not as some were heavy drinkers like me, some weren't. So it's kind of a good mix. So we're popping beers here at noon already. We did eat. I remember lunch came around. They had a cart attendant came or a cart girl came and gave you half a cousin sub and some chips. So just a good time. As the day went on, as the golf goes on, you start having a couple beers. I probably had three or four beers in the front 9. Well, then the cart girl comes out and we're starting ripping shots now. So now it's like 2:33. We're finishing up. We're all feeling pretty good. So then afterwards, you go and eat in the clubhouse, barbecue style. They do the raffle prizes. They have a couple beers there because they're at the bar. College football's on. Just a great time, right? So that escalates until like 7 or 8 o'clock. So I'm pretty wasted now, But I was always drunk, but I never was stumbling around or stuff like that. Like I was really good at holding my alcohol, but was drunk. So come to go, a lot of the guys start going home, and I think it's like 9:30. I start texting my other buddy who's out with a big group of friends. So I decided to go out on Main Street that night. Pretty wasted now. It's probably 10 o'clock. Now we're at a bar ripping shots. I got my golf clothes on from that morning. I don't even remember that I gotta go to this Packer game tomorrow. So a Packer, for the non-Wisconsin listeners, Sundays are huge in this area, in the state of Wisconsin. Things shut down for the Packer game. Bars are popping, grocery stores are empty. People are home watching the game, so it's a big, big deal in this area. So, continue drinking till bar close. Now we're downtown, so I probably walked home. Make it home. Pretty wasted at this point. Knock on my buddy's door. Wisconsin had played. He's a big Wisconsin fan. They lost at the last second or some crazy play to Arizona State. I bust in the room, wake him up at 3. He was probably hungover from the night before, so he probably was like recovering this day. Bust in the room, saying, fork him, just giving him a hard time. He was always fun, laughing at stuff because we were always out together. So this was like one night where we weren't out together. So, it was more of a funny thing at that end. But now the next morning, my other roommate was the one who I was going to the game with. So we took a Packer bus trip. Now, it's an incredible deal. So you buy tickets separately, whether, season ticket. You get the tickets have nothing to do with the bus. So some people I've known that go on this bus that don't even go to the game. They just go up to the bars, and then they got a guaranteed ride home. So here's how it works. It's $40, all you can drink and eat, and the ride there and back, basically. So a cool restaurant here in town and bar owners kind of combine, and they do a cool bus. It's really a cool time. They cater food up there. They bring a bunch of coolers of beer and alcohol. You can do to-go cups of screwdrivers in the morning. So this was a noon kickoff. So usually you leave. I'd say you usually leave about 3.5 hours before the game. So from Oshkosh, it's about a 45-minute ride. But if you get on the road early enough, you're gonna hit that 45 minutes to hour tops. Otherwise, you'll run into traffic. So I think we were leaving at like 8:30-ish or 8:15. We had to be by the bus, get on the bus, and get up there. And once you get up there, you park in this really cool spot. It's this guy's house who has a side lot where you can park other cars. We have a coach bus that can fit in there. He's got like a cool garage where the food is, and you could drink. He's got porta potties. Like, it's a big deal. He charges good money to park there, but you have all those awesome things, and it's a little off of the stadium too, so it's a little easier to get out sometimes. So that's the backstory. So now we're rolling on here at like 7:45 a.m., right? I am in a coma, basically, in my bedroom from drinking so much the night before, and I didn't get home till 3. So I'm on 4 hours of sleep. Other buddy comes in, is like shaking me, like, wake up. I finally wake up, and I'm like, he's like, hey, we got to get going here. I'm like, oh, going where? He's like, the Packer game. I'm like, oh, geez. So he's like trying to wake me up. I get in the shower quick, put my clothes, jeans and a, Packer hoodie on, Packer hat on, and look outside, and it's like kind of rainy. I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't bring a jacket. It didn't rain as much as I thought it was, but fine, whatever. But for some reason, I forget to put my belt on, and I just remember this because like later in the day, I'm like pulling my pants up all the time, kind of because they keep falling down because I didn't have a solid belt on. So that was like a future thing. So finally, we get up, I get rolling. The bus, get picked up by the bus. Or go to the bus, start, got to get those first couple beers down, right? Because this is going to make me feel better. I'm not feeling good at this point. Pipe down probably 2 beers on the way up, start to feel better, get to the place, eat a little plate of food, really start pounding beers now again because I feel better. So we get to the game. They played the Washington Redskins. It wasn't a great game. Packers rolled. Nothing really bad happened at the game. It was nothing that I can really remember. We were around a real annoying fan that we had thought he was funny. He was calling his wife every 5 minutes about, oh, did you see this play? Did you see that play? So we were like laughing with him. Camaraderie was good, but drank quite a bit. Noon game. So get home or get back to the bus. So usually the problem with these buses is you tell everybody to be back at a certain time, so everybody can leave and get out of there. Well, there's always some stragglers. Surprisingly, this was one time where I wasn't a straggler. I was drunk, feeling good, but this is like day 2 of a bender, so it's harder to continue drinking. Really, it's tougher sometimes unless you really go hard at it early and then it escalates. But this wasn't one of those times. But so then I remember people were coming back. A lot of people were drunk at this game because it was crappy weather. The game wasn't very good. Packers won easily, so people could go down to the bars or go to the Curly's, it was called, to start drinking down there to stay out of the weather. So a lot of people were drunk. So it was a really good time on the way home. We got caught in traffic. I think we took a back way home. We used to always take the back way home through Freedom and stuff. So we were drinking a lot of beers on the way home. Probably passed the bottle around. I don't know. All I remember is I get home probably about 5:30 or 6. We get the ride back, and I just immediately don't say anything to any of my other roommate who's there. The other roommate who I lived with just kind of walked in, didn't eat anything for dinner that night. Just walked in, went right to my bed, and this is like 6 o'clock, and passed out, fell asleep. So I didn't go to work that next day. I think I slept from 6 p.m. Sunday night until like 1 p.m. the next afternoon. So that was something, just a long sleep time. But just a funny story. There was was a good time. I should have woke my roommate up that night and gave him a hard time about his favorite team losing. But it was just stories like that you remember, that it's like, oh my gosh, how did I survive those? Like, now I'm thinking, as this was 6 years ago, even for a few months ago, when I wasn't getting super, wasted or hammered, where I'd still go out and maybe have 2 or 3 beers, I could feel it the next day, sort of. Where then, now, like back then, oh my God, if that was how much I drank then, I would have been out for 4 days. But fun story, the Packer bus trip. Something always happens on those things, whether it's good or bad or funny. Stories that you always memorize or we'll never forget. I've probably been on 4 or 5 of them. But it is nice because you don't have to get a ride home. You don't have to worry about any of the logistics stuff of it. So it's definitely worth $40 for the stuff. So that's this week's episode. A little smaller, nothing too crazy. Just a full 40 hours of a full 2 days of drinking, basically, until I was in a coma until about 1 p.m. the next day. I remember that hangover was not great on the second day hangover on Monday, but it didn't stop me. I think I was back at it probably that following weekend. So that's where I'm at now. For next week, we'll see if we're gonna maybe possibly get an interview on for the podcast. Otherwise, I will do another solo shot type of podcast. We'll get into some things that's going on right now and how I'm staying sober in this time, even though we're locked in our house. But it's been an interesting last few weeks without sports being canceled, and I guess kind of chiming back on that. This week usually we're in Las Vegas with some of my best friends. We went out there. This would have been our 6th year. We actually planned before all this stuff happened that we were going to postpone it this year, just because a few of our friends had some kids being born and life changes of me switching my job. It probably wasn't a great time to go out there and blow a bunch of money gambling. But it would have all been shut down anyways. Vegas is quiet right now, so no basketball tournament. It's kind of surreal that this is going on right now without any basketball, because it's like I'm such a basketball nut or fan that it's just like I've watched these so many years on this date, and now it hasn't. It was taken away by this, but it was the right move to keep everybody to try to sustain this virus, and hopefully that we can come through with that. So for Las Vegas, I know they're hurting out that way. We miss. I know all our friends miss it out there for the few days we spent out there and the laughs that we have together. So we'll definitely be out in Las Vegas coming soon to have a great time, and wanted to throw that out there. But otherwise, we will talk to you next week. I also do have some merch in the works. Not going to be any kind of profit for merch. We're just going to get the stuff out there for everybody. And at some point, if we're selling enough t-shirts and cool things, maybe we'll do some kind of kickback to our local recovery programs. I think that'd be cool. So I got to try to reach out to them over this break and see if we can have a cool connection with that. So otherwise, for everybody, if you're not quarantined at this point, you probably will be if lockdown, as I should say. So, but you can still get outside and get some exercise and stuff, and then be productive at home. So, on the Wagon Podcast, signing off.